Hello, fairy finders and fairy seekers. Welcome to FaerieQuest and another episode of Real Fairies in Real Photos. This time we are at the Mystic Trail, or what is actually known as the Heart of Iowa Trail. However, it is one of the most magical places that I have ever taken photographs in, and I've taken a lot of them at the Mystic Trail. We're going back in time again a little bit to 2016 and 2017 so I can share some of these phenomenal photos from this location. Before we get started, don't forget to grab that magic wand and zap the like button. Subscribe if you haven't already, and consider supporting this channel by clicking on the link in the description box below. All right, now that the business part of things is done, let's check out the Mystic Trail. The species of this fairy is an absolute mystery, but I suppose it could be of the leaf species as it looks a bit like a leaf. We can see the head with eyes and a small nose, but the mouth is covered by the berry it is holding. The arm and hand or paw can be clearly seen on the berry. In doubt, look at the photo to the left. This fairy does not look like anything around it. Even the color is different from the leaves. This tiny fairy is standing on a leaf and hugging up to the stem of this really long weed. We can see his whole body from the top of his head down to his feet. He appears to have no hair. His face is turned toward us, so we can make out one eye and his nose, and we can also see one ear. He is wearing a dark shirt with a light-colored sleeve. On the arm we can see, and his pants appear to be lighter than the dark shirt. He is incredible. We have a ghostly fairy here. He is near the edge of the original photo. We can see his hat, both eyes, his nose, and one hand and arm. He may have a beard, but it is hard to tell for sure if that is what is between his nose and his hand. It might just be an extra frilly collar to match his hat. He almost seems to have a ghostly aura around him. This fairy resembles my vision of a cherub. We can see his curly hair and an eye, a nose, and part of his mouth. There is also a very clear hand and arm, and an even clearer wing. He is a bit more difficult to see when enlarged as above, so go back and forth between the left photo and the one above. He is ever so clear. I have lightened the photo above for you as this fairy is in a darker area. I almost passed him by until I saw the stitching on the edge of his hat. He has very small facial features, but we can still see one eye, his nose, and possibly a mustache. We also see his shoulder and the hat that fits very snugly to his head. It looks like he is climbing the tree, but that is just a guess. At first glance, you might think this fairy is just a brown leaf, but look again. We can see facial features, though very light, and this includes a beard and a hat. His wing is unmistakable. We can see one arm and hand also. His legs are a bit of a blur, and I believe he is actually in motion. Though he could easily be mistaken for part of the dried leaf plant, when you look at him in the larger photo, you can tell he is not. This fairy isn't as clear as what I normally like to share, but it was just too interesting not to share. We can see this fairy looking straight at us and can just make out his blurry eyes and nose. He has a strange apparatus on his head that looks like lights, and he is wearing robes. He appears to be blowing into a long black stick. Look closely. That may be an instrument, or the way he is dressed might indicate some kind of science experiment. Pretty cool, though. This fairy was clear enough that I don't think I really needed to label him, but I did anyway. He kind of reminds me of an insect from the antennas and the eyes on the sides of the face, but I'm wondering where his wings are. I suppose the dark leaf could be a wing, but it seems to be in the wrong place for a wing. We can also see this fairy's nose. We are seeing his body from the side with his head turned towards us. He's actually pretty cute. This fairy stuck out in the original photo, as you can see in the photo to the left. We can see her dark hair pulled back in a bun, her pale face with eyes, nose, and mouth, and we can see her feet in little black boots. I believe she has a stick in one hand and that she is sitting at a makeshift desk with an open book. The stick reminds me of a conductor's wand, or maybe it's a magic wand. She might be practicing some spell work. This fairy enlarges to look like a painting, but we can see his large ear, his super dark hair, sunglasses, and his hand messing with something on the downed log. If you look closely, you can see he is wearing a belt near where I have labeled his butt. He is a bit harder to see than many of the fairies as he is further away from the camera. Here we have a fairy bending over a stick on the ground, which tells you just how small he is and why it was difficult for me to make him any larger for you. He is looking down at the ground, pointing at something or picking up something with the hand I have labeled. His face is green and we can see one eye and his nose. He is also wearing a headband. His hair is black and he has a combo hat and cape, I believe. He may be friends with the other fairy from the last frame of this video. I have pointed him out with the red arrow in the photo to the left. This little one stood out, though she could easily have been mistaken for the leaves. I think it was her shine that caught my eye first, which led me to look closer. We can see this fairy's beautiful little eyes and tiny nose, her long, thin, pointed ears, and her tall hat. Or is that hair? She appears to be lying on the ground with her head resting on her hands. I love this one. This little fairy has the cutest hat. We can see where his face is supposed to be, but the features are not clear. We know where his eyes are supposed to be due to the shadow line, and we can see an ear. He is obviously relaxing on the leaves. His arm and hand can be seen, as well as his body down to his foot. Oh, so laid back and adorable. I have lightened the photo above for you so you can see more of the details of this adorable little dancing girl fairy. She has a bow in her hair and a pretty pink dress on that she is obviously thrilled to be wearing. She is twirling to make the dress flare out. We can see facial features if we look closely, especially her eyes. We see one arm and hand and one leg here. Look at the photo to the left and see how small she really is in comparison to her surroundings.